White from the underarm of T, the red globe. Up, down, round, shiny fixed, alternatives from the quiet stone floor. Thus hides thee, parts the prudery of frigid air, of soda jerking. Thus above thee, plain of lunch, of wives, removes itself as soda jerking from the private act of cracking eggs, big business. The evening, water in a glass, through which the car runs on a higher road. Over what is the air frozen? Nothing can equal in polish and obscured origin that dark instrument, a car, which ease, the hand on the sword hilt. Her ankles are watches. Her armpits are causeways for water. When she steps, she walks on a sphere, walks on the carpet, dressing, brushing her hair, a movement accustomed, abstracted, declares this morning a woman's, my hair, scalp. The lights, paving, this important device of a race, remains till morning, burns against a wall. He has chosen a place with the usual considerations without stating them, buildings. The mast inaudibly soars, bow-like, tapering, sail flattens from it beneath the wind. The limp water holds the boat's round sides, sun slants dry light on the deck. Beneath us glide rocks, sand, and unrimmed holes. Closed car, closed in glass, at the curb, unapplied and empty, a thing among others, over which clouds pass in the alteration of lighting, an overstatement, hardly an exterior, moving in traffic. This thing is less strange, though the face still within it, between glasses, place over which time passes, a false light. This land, the hills, round under straw, a house with rigid trees and flaunts, a family laundry, and the glass of windows. She lies hip high on a flat bed while the after sun passes. Plant, I breathe, oh clearly, eyes, legs, arms, hands, fingers, simple legs in silk. This is the image of the engine. Likely as not a ruined head gasket, spitting at every power stroke, if not a crankshaft bearing knocking at the roots of the thing like a pile driver. A machine involved with itself, a concentrated hot lump of a machine geared in the loose mechanics of the world, with the valves jumping and the heavy frenzy of the pistons. When the thing stops, is stopped, with the last slow cough in the manifold, the flywheel blundering against compression, stopping, finally stopped, compression leaking from the idle cylinders. Will one imagine then, because he can imagine, that squeezed from the cooling steel, there hovers in that moment, wraith-like and like a plume of steam, an aftermath, a still and quiet angel of knowledge and of comprehension. Endlessly, endlessly, the definition of mortality, the image of the engine that stops. We cannot live on that. I know that no one would live out 30 years, 50 years if the world were ending with his life. The machine stares out with all its eyes, through the glass with the ripple in it, past the sill, which is dusty if there is someone in the garden outside, and so beautiful. What ends is that? Even companionship ending. I want to ask if you remember when we were happy, as though all travels ended untold, all embarkations founded. On that water, gray with morning, the gull will fold its wings and sit, and with its two eyes, there as much as anything, can watch a ship and all its hallways and all companions sink. Also, he has set the world in their hearts from lumps, chunks. We are locked out, like children seeking love, at last among each other. With their first full strength, the young go search for it. But even the beautiful, bony children who arise in the morning have left behind them worn and squalid toys in the trash, which is a grimy death of love. The lost glitter of the stores, the streets of stores, and every crevice of the city leaking rubble, concrete, conduit, pipe, a crumbling rubble of our roots. But they will find in flood, storm, ultimate mishap, earth, water, the tremendous surface, the heart thundering, absolute desire. Returning to that house and the rounded rocks of childhood, they have lasted well, a world of things. An aging man, the knuckles of my hands so jointed. I am this, the house, my father's once, and the ground. There is a color of his times in the sun's light, a generation's mark. It intervenes. My child, not now a child, our child, not altogether alone, in a lone universe that suffers time, like stones in sun, for we do not. This is from a photograph. Her arms around me, child around my head, hugging with her whole arms as if I were a loved and native rock, the apple in her hand, her apple in her father, and my nose pressed hugely to the collar of her winter coat. There in the photograph, it is the child who is the branch we fall from, where would be bramble, brush, bramble in the young winter, with its blowing snow, she must have thought was ours to give to her. The source. If the city has roots, they are in filth that is a slum. Even the sidewalk rasps under the feet. In some black brick tenement, a woman's body glows, the gleam, the unimaginable thin feet taper down the instep, naked to the wooden floor, hidden and disguised and shy, the city's secret warmth. This is Daedalus, the Dirge. The boy accepted them, his whole childhood in them, his difference from the others, the wings gold, gold for credence, every feather of them. He believed more in the things than I and less, familiar as speech, the family tongue. I remember now expedients, frauds, ridiculous, and the real withering sun blazing still. Who could have said more, losing the boy anyway in the bare field there, old man, old potterer. This poem is survival, infantry. And the world changed. There had been trees and people, sidewalks and roads. There were fish in the sea. Where did all the rocks come from and the smell of explosives? Iron standing in mud. We crawled everywhere on the ground without seeing the earth again. We were ashamed of our half-life and our misery. We saw that everything had died. And the letters came, people who addressed us through our lives. They left us gasping and in tears, in the same mud, in a terrible ground. Leviathan. Truth also, the pursuit of it, like happiness, and it will not stand. Even the verse begins to eat away in the acid. Pursuit, pursuit. A wind moves a little, moving in a circle, very cold. How shall we say, in ordinary discourse? We must talk now. I am no longer sure of the words, the clockwork of the world. What is inexplicable is the preponderance of objects. The skylights, daily with that predominance, and we have become the present. We must talk now. Fear is fear, but we abandon one another. Song. In the small beauty of the forest, the wild deer bedding down, that they are there, their eyes, effortless, the soft lips, nuzzle on the alien small teeth, tear at the grass, the roots of it dangle from their mouths, scattering earth in the strange woods, they who are there, their paths, nibbled through the fields, the leaves that shade them, hang in the distances of sun, the small nouns, crying faith, in this in which the wild deer startle and stare out.
I'll read you 5 poems about poetry. The gesture. The question is, how does one hold an apple who likes apples? And how does one handle filth? The question is, how does one hold something in the mind which he intends to grasp? And how does the salesman hold a bauble he intends to sell? The question is, when will there not be 100 poets who mistake that gesture for a style? The little hole in the eye, Williams called it the little hole, has exposed us naked to the world and will not close. Blankly the world looks in and we compose colors in the sense of home, and there are those in it so violent and so alone they cannot rest. Sing like a bird at the open sky, but no bird is a man. Like the grip of the Roman hand on his shoulder, the certainties of time and of place held him, I think, with the pain and the casual horror of the iron, and may have left no hope of doubt. Whereas we have one doubt, from the iron itself, and hope in death, so that if a man lived forever, he would outlive hope. I imagine open sky over Gethsemane. Surely it was this sky. Impossible to doubt the world. It can be seen, and because it is irrevocable, it cannot be understood, and I believe that fact is lethal. And man may find his catastrophe, his millennium of obsession, air moving, a stone on a stone, something balanced momentarily. In time might the lion lie down in the forest, less fierce and solitary than the world of walls of whose future may last forever. I, says the buzzard, I, mind, has evolved too long, if life is a search for advantage. At whose behest does the mind think? Art also is not good for us unless, like the fool, persisting in his folly, it may rescue us, as only the true might rescue us, gathered in the smallest corners of man's triumph. Parve pour, begin, O small boy, to be born, on whom his parents have not smiled. No god thinks worthy of his table, no goddess of her bed.
The forms of love. Parked in the fields all night, so many years ago, we saw a lake beside us when the moon rose. I remember leaving that ancient car together. I remember standing in the white, incredible light, beginning to wonder whether it could be lake or fog. We saw our heads ringing under the stars. We walked to where it would have wet our feet had it been water. Penobscot. Penobscot, half deserted, has an air of northern age. The rocks and pines and the inlets of the sea shining among the islands, and these innocent people in their carpentered homes nailed against the weather. It is more primitive than I know to live like this, to tinker and to sleep near the birches that shine in the moonlight in the forests of the ancient north, so distant from the classic world. The flat rock bulges into the fields, wildflowers growing at its edges. It is a place its women love, which is the country's distinction. The canoes in the forest and the small prows of the fish boats off the coast in the dead of winter that burns like a tiger in the night sky. One sees their homes and lawns, the pale wood houses and the pale green terrace lawns. It brightens up into the branches and against the buildings early. That was earlier. Ah, these are the poor. These are the poor. Bergen Street. Humiliation, hardship. Nor are they very good to each other. It is not that I want. An end of poverty, as much as anyone, for the sake of intelligence, the conquest of existence, it has been said and is true. And this is real pain, moreover. It is terrible to see the children, the righteous little girls, so good. They expect to be so good. The Mayan Ground. And whether they are beautiful or not, there will be no one to guard them in the days to come. We mourn the red cardinal birds and the jeweled ornaments and the handful of precious stones in our fields. Poor savages of ghost and glitter, nearly rolling now. The tire leaves a mark On the earth, a ridge in the ground, crumbling at the edges, which is terror, the unsightly, silting sand of events. Inside that shell, that speckled egg, the poet wrote of, that we try to break, each day the little grain, electron beating, without cause, dry grain, father of all our fathers, hidden in the blazing shell, sunlight, savages. Savages, there is no mystery about them, given the rest of it. They who have evolved in it and no one to shield them. Therefore, in the days to come, in the ruts of the road, or the fields, or the thin air of the Berserk mountain, but the God, they said, moving on the waters, the breeze on the water, feathery, serpent, wind on the surface, on the shallows, and the count of the calendar had become confused. They said they had lost account of the unrolling of the universe, and indeed the people stir in the mornings, coming from the houses in the black hair of the women at the pump against the dawn seems beautiful. I am the father of no country and can lie. But whether mendacity is really the best policy and whether one is not afraid to lie. And truth, oh, truth, attack on the innocent if all we have is time. The constant singing of the radios and the art of colored lights and the perfumist are also art, but here parallel lines do not meet and the compass does not spin. This is the interval in which they do not, and events emerge on the bow like an island, mussels clinging to its rocks from which kelp grows, grass, and the small trees above the tide line, and its lighthouse showing its whitewash in the daylight, in which things explain each other, not themselves. An enclave filled with their own lives, they said, but they disperse into their jobs, their circles, lose connection with themselves. How shall they know themselves bony with age? This is our home. The planets move in it, or seem to. It is our home. Wolves may hunt with wolves, but we will lose humanity in the cities and the suburbs, stores and offices in simple enterprise. It is a place. Nothing has entered it. Nothing has left it. People are born from those who are there. How have I forgotten? How have we forgotten? That which is clear, we dwindle, but that I have forgotten tortures me. I saw from the bus, walked in fact from the bus station to see again the river and its rough machinery on the sloping bank. I cannot know whether the weight of cause is in such a place as that, though the depth of water pours and pours past Albany from all its sources. Or over us the serpent, whose tail is in his mouth. He is the root of evil, this ringworm, the devil's doctrine the blind man knew. His mind is its own place. He has no story. Digested and digesting, fool object, dingy medallion in the gutter of Atlantic Avenue, let it alone, it is deadly. What breath there is in the rib cage we must draw from the dimensions surrounding whether or not we are lost, and choke on words. But at night the park, she said, is horrible, and Bronx said, perhaps the world is horror. She did not understand. He meant the waves or pellets are thrown from the process of the suns and like radar, bounce where they strike. The eye, it happens, registers, but it is dark. It is the nature of the world. It is as dark as radar. The lights shine, the fire glows in the pathetic fallacy of words, and one may cherish invention and the invented terms we act on, but the park or the river at night, she said again, is horrible. Some of the young men have become aware of the Indian, perhaps because the young men move across the continent without wealth, moving, one could say, on the bare ground. There one finds the Indian, otherwise not found. Wood here and there to make a village, a fish trap in a river, the land pretty much as it was. And because they also were a people in danger, because they feared also the thing might end, I think of the Indian songs. There was no question what the old men were singing. The anthropologist wrote, aware that the old men sang on those prairies, return, the return of the sun. River of our substance, flowing with the rest. River of the substance of the earth's curve, river of the substance of the sunrise, river of silt, of erosion, flowing to no imaginable sea. But the mind rises into happiness, rising into what is there. I know of no other happiness, nor have I ever witnessed it. Islands to the north, in polar mist, in the rather shallow sea, nothing more but the sense of where we are, who are most northerly, the marvel of the wave, even here as its noise seething in the world. I thought that even if there were nothing, the possibility of being would exist. I thought I had encountered permanence. Thought leaped on us in that sea, for in that sea we breathe the open miracle of place and speak, if we would rescue love to the ice-lit upper world, a substantial language of clarity and of respect. There are things we live among, and to see them is to know ourselves, the currents, a part of an infinite series, the sad marvels. Of this was told a tale of our wickedness. It is not our wickedness. You remember that old town we went to when we sat in the ruined window and we tried to imagine that we belonged to those times. It is dead and it is not dead, and you cannot either imagine either its life or its death. The earth speaks and the salamander speaks. The spring comes and only obscures it. So spoke of the existence of things, an unmanageable pantheon. Absolute, but they say Arab. City of the corporations, glassed in dreams, and images and the pure joy of the mineral fact, though it is impenetrable as the world, if it is matter, is impenetrable. The emotions are engaged, entering the city as entering any city. We are not coeval with the locality, but we imagine others are. We encounter them, actually. A populace flows through the city. This is a language, therefore, of New York. For the people of that flow are new, the old, new to age as the young, to youth and to their dwelling, for which the tarred roofs and the stoops and doors, a world of stoops, our petty alibi and satirical wit will not serve. The great stone above the river, in the pylon of the bridge, 1875, frozen in the moonlight, in the frozen air over the footpath, consciousness which has nothing to gain, which awaits nothing, which loves it so. We are pressed on each other. We will be told at once of anything that happens, and the discovery of fact bursts in a paroxysm of emotion. Now, as always, Crusoe, we say, was rescued. So we have chosen, obsessed, bewildered by the shipwreck of the singular, we have chosen the meaning of being numerous. Amor fati, the love of fate, for which the city alone is audience, perhaps blasphemous. Slowly over islands, destinies, moving steadily past and change in the thin sky, over islands, among days, having only the force of days, most simple, most difficult. Whether, as the intensity of seeing increases, one's distance from them, the people, does not also increase, I know, of course I know, I can enter no other place. Yet I am one of those who from nothing but man's way of thought and one of his dialects and what has happened to me have made poetry. To dream of that beach, for the sake of an instant in the eyes, the absolute singular, the unearthly bonds of the singular, which is the bright light of shipwreck, or in that light, new arts, dithyrambic, audience as artists, but I will listen to a man, I will listen to a man, and when I speak, I will speak, though he will fail, and I will fail, but I will listen to him speak. The shuffling of a crowd is nothing, well, nothing but the many that we are, but nothing. Urban art, art of the cities, art of the young in the cities. The isolated man is dead, his world around him exhausted, and he fails that meditative man, and indeed they cannot bear it. It is that light seeps anywhere, a light for the times, in which the buildings stand on low ground, their pediments just above the harbor, absolutely immobile, hollow, available. You could enter any building. You could look from any window. One might wave to himself from the top of the Empire State Building. Speak if you can. Speak. Phyllis, not neoclassic. The girl's name is Phyllis. Coming home from her first job on the bus in the bare civic interior. Among those people, the small doors opening on the night at the curb, her heart, she told me, suddenly tight with happiness. So small a picture, a spot of light on the curb that cannot demean us. I too am in love down there with the streets and the square slabs of pavement, to talk of the house and the neighborhood and the docks, and it is not art. In these explanations, it is presumed that an experiencing subject is one occasion of a sensitive reaction to an actual world. The rain falls that had not been falling, and it is the same world. They made small objects of wood and the bones of fish and of stone. They talked, families talked, they gathered in council and spoke, carrying objects. They were credulous of things shown in the forest. They were patient with the world. This will never return, never, unless having reached their limits, they will begin over, that is, over and over. Unable to begin, at the beginning the fortunate find everything already here. They are shoppers, choosers, judges, and here the brutal is without issue, a dead end. They develop argument in order to speak. They become unreal. Unreal life loses solidity, loses extent. Baseball's their game, because baseball is not a game but an argument, and difference of opinion makes the horse races. They are ghosts that endanger one's soul. There is change in an air that smells stale. They will come to the end of an era, first of all peoples, and one may honorably keep his distance if he can. I cannot even now altogether disengage myself from those men with whom I stood at emplacements and mess tents, in hospitals and sheds, and hid in the gullies of blasted roads in a ruined country among the many men more capable than I, Micah and a sergeant named Healy, that lieutenant also. How forget that? How talk distantly of the people who are that force within the walls of cities, where in their cars echo like history down walled avenues in which one cannot speak. Chorus, androgynous, find me, so that I will exist. Find my navel, so that it will exist. Find my nipples, so that they will exist. Find every hair of my belly. I am good or I am bad. Find me. He who will not work shall not eat, and only he who is troubled shall find rest. And only he who descends into another world shall rescue his beloved. And only he who unsheathes his knife shall be given Isaac again. He who will not work shall not eat, but he who will work shall give birth to his own father. The roots of words dim in the subways. There is madness in the number of the living, a state of matter. There is nobody here but us chickens, anti-ontology. He wants to say his life is real. No one can say why. It is not easy to speak, a ferocious mumbling in public of rootless speech. It is the air of atrocity, an event as ordinary as a president, a plume of smoke, visible at a distance, in which people burn. Now in the helicopters, the casual will is atrocious. Insanity in high places. If it is true he must do these things, we must cut our throats. The fly in the bottle. Insane, the insane fly, which over the city is the bright light of shipwreck. They await. War in the news is war, as always, that the juices may flow in them, though the juices lie. Great things have happened on the earth and given it history, armies and the ragged hordes moving and the passions of that death. But who escapes death among these riders of the subway? They know by now, as I know, failure and the guilt of failure, as in Hardy's poem of Christmas. We might half hope to find the animals in the sheds of a nation, kneeling at midnight, farm animals, draft animals, beasts for slaughter, because it would mean they have forgiven us, or, which is the same thing, that we do not altogether matter. They can be a brick in a brick wall. The eye picks, so quiet of a Sunday. Here is the brick. It was waiting here when you were born. Marianne. Clarity in the sense of transparent. I don't mean that much can be explained. Clarity in the sense of silence. From a phrase of Simone Weil's and some words of Hegel's,
In, back, deep the jewel, the treasure, no liquid. Pride of the living, life's liquid, pride in the sand, spit, wind, this ether, this other, this element, all. It is I, or I believe we are the beaks of the ragged birds, tune of the ragged birds' beaks, and the tune of the winds. Obvia, the obvious, like a fire of straws, a flame in the world, or else poor people hide yourselves together, place where desire, lust of the eyes, the pride of life, and foremost of the storm's multitude moves the wave, belly lovely, glass of the glass sea, shadow of water, on the open water, no other way to come here, the outer limit of the ego. Animula. Chance and thereby starlit, all that was to be thought, yes, comes down the road. Air of the waterfronts, black air, over the iron bolland, the doors cracked. In the starlight the things continue, narrative, their long instruction and the tide running, strong as a tug's wake, shore lights, fractured dances across rough water, a music, who would believe it, not quite one's own, with one always, the black verse, the turn and the turned, at the lens focus, the crystal pool, and navigable, torrent, torment, Edens, flooded valley, dramas of dredged waters, a wind blowing out, and out to sea, the latent salt times cling, in panicked, spirals at the hull's sides, sea streaks floating, curved on the sea, little pleasant soul wandering, frightened, the small mid-ocean, moonlights the winches. West. Elephants say, scraping its dry sides, in a narrow place as he passes, says, yes, this is true. So one knows, and the ferns unfurling, leaves in the wind, sea from which we address the future, unsure of the times, unsure I can answer. To myself, we have been ignited, blazing, in wrath we await the rare poetic of veracity, that huge art whose geometric light seems not its own in that most dense world, west and east, have denied, have hated, have wandered in precariousness, like a new fire, will burn out the roots. One thinks of steep fields of brown grass in the mountains, it seems they lie aslant in the thin, burning air, and among clouds the sun passes boulders, grass blades, sky-clad things in nakedness, inseparable, the children will say. Our parents waited in the woods, precarious, transparent as the childhood of the world, growing old, the seagulls sound like the voices of children, wilder than children, wildest of children, the waves riot, brilliant as the world, upside down, on obstinate islands. This is the seaboard, new skilled fishermen, and the great bays and the narrow bights. This is the book of hours. As if a nail whose wide head were time and space, at the nail's point the hammer blow, undiminished, holes, pitfalls open, in the cop's accoutrement, crevasse, the destitute metal, jail metal, impoverished, intimate. As a father, did you know that, old friend, old poet, though you'd walked familiar streets and glittered with change, the circle, destroyed its content, persists the common place, image, the initial light, walk on the walls of the fortress, the countryside, broad in the night light, the sap rises. Out of obscurities, the sap rises, the sap not exhausted, movement of the stone, music of the tenement. Also is this lonely theme, earth, my sister, lonely sister, my sister, but why did I weep?
Meeting that poet again, what was that rage before Léger's art poster? In wartime Paris, perhaps art is one's mother and father, or rage of the exile, fought ice, fought shifting stones, beyond the battlement, crevasse, fought no man but the fragments of metal, though there were men fought no man but the fragments of metal, burying my dog tagged with H for Hebrew in the rubble of Alsace. I must get out of here. Father, he thinks, father, disgrace of dying, old friend, old poet, if you did not look, what is it you love, twisting your voice, your walk, wet roads, hot sun on the hills. He walks twig-strewn streets of the rain, walks homeward, unteachable. Song, the winds of downhill. Out of poverty to begin, again impoverished of tone, of pose, that common wealth of knowledge, who, so poor the words would, with and, take on substantial meaning, handholds, footholds, to dig in one's heels, sliding, hands and heels, beyond the residential lots, the plots, it is a poem which may be sung, may well be sung. The translucent mechanics. Comb through the piers, the wind moves in the clever city, not in the doors but the hinges, finds the secret of motion, as though the hollow ships moved in their voices, murmurs, flaws in the wind, fear at the lumber mastheads, and fetched a message out of the sea again, say angel, say powers, obscurely things in the self, prosody sings in the stones to entrust to a poetry of statement at close quarters, a living mind, and that one's own, what then? What spirit of the bed seas, archangel of the tide brimming in the moon streak, comes in whose absence earth crumbles. Silver as the needle's eye of the horizon, and the noise of their entrance, row on row the waves move landward, convictions, net of branches, and the horde of events, the sacred swarm, avalanche, massed in the sunset, needle after needle, more numerous than planets or the liquid waves. In the tide drips, we believe. Beyond the cable car streets and the picture window lives the glittering, crumbling night of obstructions and the stark structures that carry wires over the mountain. One writes in the presence of something, moving close to fear. I dare to pity no one. Let the rafters pity, the air in the room under the rafters pity, in the continual sound, our chords not yet struck, which will be struck nevertheless. Yes. O withering seas of the doorsteps and local winds unveil the face of art. Carpenter, plunge and drip in the sea, art's face, we know that face, more blinding than the sea, a haunted house, a limited consensus unwinding its powers toward the thread's end, in the record of great blows, shocks, ravishment, devastation, the wood splintered, the keyboard gone, and the rank grass swept a hand over the strings, and the thing rang out over the rocks and the ocean. Not my poem, Mr. Steinway's poem, not mine. A marvelous object is not the marvel of things, twisting the new mouth, forcing the new tongue, but it rang. The taste. Old ships are preserved for their queer silence of obedient seas, the cutwaters floating in the still water, with their cozy black ironwork and Swedish seamen dead, the cabins hold the spaces of their deaths, and the hammered nails of necessity carried through the ocean, where the moon rises grandly in the grandeur of cause. We have a taste for bedrock beneath this spectacle to gawk at, Something is wrong with the antiques. A black fluid has covered them, a black splintering. Under the eyes of young wise people talk wildly. We are beginning to talk wildly. The wind at every summit, our overcoats strip us, running for the bus, our arms stretched out in a wind from what were sand dunes. Climbing the peak of Mount Tamalpais, the loose gravel underfoot, and the city shining with the tremendous wrinkles in the hills and the winding of the bay. Behind it, it faces the bent ocean. Streetcars rocked through the city, and the winds combed their clumsy sides. In clumsy times, Sierras withering behind the storefronts. And sanity, that roadside weed, dreams of sports and sportsmanship. In the lucid towns paralyzed under the truck tires, shall we relinquish sanity to redeem fragments and fragmentary histories in the towns and the temperate streets, too shallow still to drown in or to mourn the courageous and precarious children? But so is by fire. The darkness of trees guards this life of the thin ground that covers the rock ledge among the lanes and magic of the eastern woods. The beauty of silence and broken boughs and the homes of small animals, the green leaves of young plants above the dark green moss and the sweet smell of rot, the pools and the trickle of fresh water. First life, rotting life, hidden starry life, it is not yet a mirror like our lives. We have gone as far as is possible, whose lives reflect light like mirrors. One had not thought to be afraid, not of shadow but of light. Summon one's powers. Exodus. Miracle of the children, the brilliant children, the word liquid as woodlands, children. When she was a child, I read Exodus to my daughter, the children of Israel, pillar of fire, pillar of cloud. We stared at the end into each other's eyes. Where? She said, hushed, were the adults. We dreamed to each other. Miracle of the children, the brilliant children, miracle of their brilliance, miracle of. Latitude, longitude. Climbed from the road and found, over the flowers at the mountains, rough top a bee yellow and heavy as pollen in the mountainous air, thin legs crookedly a dangle, if we could. Find all the gale's evidence, what message is there for us in these glassy bottles? The encyclopedist was wrong, many things too foolish to sing may be said, this matter of fact defines poetry. So this is the speech at Soli. World, new spirit, what do you want to tell? How will the world speak? Nights or some nights, sleepless, fearful, remembering myself in these towns or by car through these towns, unconscionable, adolescent, from the things that occur and as they occur must make an estimate of the kind of world they belong to. Young girls fall into wells, says a letter, bringing to birth in the green storm, anger, and the light of the self, small, blazing sun of the farms, return, the return of the sun. There are actors, faces of the highways, the theater, greets itself and reverberates, the spirit goes down, goes under, stationary valves of ditches, the charted, rivers, threats and stones, enemies and sidewalks, and when the stars rise, reverse ourselves as those who have lived too long, regions of the mind, altar, mad kings, a swirl, all these, their southern resorts stank, war and incoherent, sunlight, that other, desertion of the total, we, Who are the others? A kind of scattered peasantry discover Friday's footprint, is it, with its hobnails in the soil as the sun moves beyond the blunt towns of the coast, fishermen's tumbling headlands, the needle, silver water, and tells the public time.
This is the myth of the blaze. Night sky, bird's world, to know in my life to know what I have said to myself, the dark to escape in, brilliant highways in the night sky finally. Why had they not killed me? Why did they fire that warning, wounding cannon, only the one round? I hold a superstition because of this, lost. To be lost, Wyatt's lyric and resis running through my mind in the destroyed and guilty theater of the war. I'd cried and remembered boyhood, degradation, other degradations, and this crime I will not recover from that landscape. It will be in my mind, it will fill my mind, and this is horrible deathbed pavement, the secret taste of being lost, dead. Clown in the bird's world, what names but my name, and my love's name to speak into the eyes of the tiger blaze of changes, named the animals, name and name the vigorous, dusty, strong animals gather under the joists, the boards older than they, giving them darkness, the gifted, dark though names, the little, adventurous words, a mountain, the cliff, a wave, a taxonomy. I believe in the world because it is impossible, the shack on the coast, under the eaves, the rain barrel flooding in the weather and no lights, across rough water illumined as though the narrow end of the funnel. What are the names of the tiger to speak to the eyes of the tiger blaze, of the tiger who moves in the forest, leaving no scent but the pine needles? His eyes blink quick in the shack, in the knife cut and the opaque white bread each side of the knife.
Inlet. Mary in the noisy seascape of the white caps of another people's summer, and off the town pier, rounding that heavy coast of mountains, the night drifted over the rope's end, glass world, glass heaven, brilliant beneath the boat's round bilges and the surface of the water. Talked of the theologians, so brave, she said in the wilderness. Shepherds are good people, let them sing. The little skirts, life's breast for what we can have is each other. Breath of the barnacles, over England, over ocean, breakwaters, fingers.
Disasters of wars or western wind and storm, of politics, I'm sick with the poets' vanity, legislators of the unacknowledged world. It is dreary to descend and be a stranger. How shall we descend who have become strangers in this wind that rises like a gift, in the disorder, the gales of a poet's vanity? If our story shall end untold, to whom and to what are we ancestral? We wanted to know if we were any good out there. The song changes, the wind is blowing the sand about, and we are alone. The sea dawns, and the sunrise bursts with its rush. Beach light extreme, sands dazzling under the near and not less brutal feet journey in light and wind and fire and water and air, the five bright elements, the marvel of the obvious and the marvel of the hidden. Is there, in fact, a distinction, dance of the wasp wings, dance as of the mother tongues? Can they with all their meanings dance. Oh, oh, I see my love, I see her go. Over the ice alone, I see myself Sarah. Sarah, I see the tent in the desert, my life. Narrow as my life is another, I see him in the desert. I am watch him. He is clumsy and alone, my lost sister, her small voice among the people, the salt and terrible hills whose armies have marched, and the caves of the hidden people carved of that air, once only in the deluge of minutes, a tree, a city, a stone in the road waiting, stones, eagles, seagulls sliding sideways down the wind. I cannot find a way to speak of this. The source, the image, the space of the poem are space too great or too small, for we are here and must mean it where the world rides. The words speak of too little time remaining, fearful of sorrow in this once only, among atoms, eagles, and alone. Shall we say more than this? I can say more. There it is. I can say more. We have hardly begun to speak. Walked around earth, the dark. Truths and blazing truths are the same. They move, waver, almost stand in my mind continually in our dreams like shadows of water moving. If in time we see the words fail this, we know this. We walk in, and as all we know, we will speak to each other. We will speak.
Waking, who knows the great open doors of the tall buildings and the grid of the streets? The seed is a place, the stone is a place. Mind will burn the world down alone and transparent, will burn the world down, though the starlight is part of ourselves. The tongues of appearance speak in the unchosen journey, immense journey. There is loss in denying that force, the moments, the years, even of death lost in denying that force, the words out of that whirlwind, his and not his, strange words surround him. Neighbors. Through our kitchen window, I see the house next door, a frame house under the asphalt shingles, the wooden framing, and I don't know what I am doing here. The neighbor, the actual neighbor, we are even friendly in a way, and I don't know what I am doing here. There is more to wake to than these old boards, these many boards, and the voice of the poem, a wandering foreigner, more strange and brilliant than the moon's light, the true native opening, the nooks and the corners and the great spaces, clear fields of her hand.